Thursday morning is here. It's the first week of the transfer portal, and we have no shortage of topics to get into. We have transfer portal news, we have recruiting news, we have coaching carousel news, all jam packed into an hour, and we're going to have a lot of fun. As you're hopping in here, hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're interested in, what transfer portal moves have piqued your interest, or just the general conversation pieces you want to talk about today. We like to get interactive on the show. Jay from Unfair Sports will be joining us here very shortly. It's going to be a great time. And I want to kick it off with some coaching carousel news, because right as we get in here, as Blood comes in, Blood, happy you're in here this Thursday morning, man. Hope you're having a good week. Right as we kick this off, news comes out per On3 Sports that Penn State defensive coordinator Manny Diaz has emerged for the Duke head coaching job, per Pete Thamel. And this makes sense. Manny Diaz has experience in the ACC coming from Miami, so it would be a natural fit. He's familiar with the recruiting grounds. He now is familiar with recruiting grounds in Big Ten country, having served as defensive coordinator, and he's an experienced head coach. So I can't say I'm super surprised about Duke looking at Manny Diaz and pulling the trigger there because of all that experience. Now, I am interested to see what comes next, especially with Riley Leonard checking out Notre Dame amongst other schools in the transfer portal. What does Duke do? Duke's coming off of a really good season. In fact, several of the basketball schools or traditional basketball powers have been really impressive on the football field here recently. But Duke is sustaining a lot of losses in between their head coach, their quarterback, who was so talented, so impressive for them. What do they look like next year? That's a question I'm really excited to see. Interested in hearing from all of you. Let's hit up some more comments. 5 till midnight says, what's up, Ty? Happy you're in here, 5. Enjoying the day, man. We have got so much to talk about, and it's just an amazing time around here. Steven says, Ty, it's a sad day. I'm out of Shady Miles. Used the last night to help with the tears. Hey, man, always more Shady Miles, and nothing to be upset about, man. Nothing to be upset about. A lot of good stuff coming. Blood says, what do you think about Stutzman going to the draft? We're going to talk about today. I'm actually going to try and hold out a little bit longer for Jay to hop in here. That way we can get his opinions on that as well. But I can't say I'm super surprised as an initial reaction. We'll talk about why. But yeah, a very talented player, had an incredible year under that Brent Venables linebacking core, which is so highly valued in the NFL in terms of the scheme. And what better time for us to be jumping into it? With Zach says OU defense going to be iffy. I don't know about that, Zach. I think you'll have some depth that's going to be exciting, especially at linebacker. And I know a lot of Oklahoma fans aren't necessarily over the moon with where Kanik is at. I will remind everybody, he was a straight athlete coming out of high school. He was positionless coming out of high school, and now he's asked to adapt and learn one of the more difficult defenses, and not only adapt and learn it, but be the quarterback in that defense. It takes time. Give him that year. He'll be good. Plus, you have Kip Lewis, you have Kobe McKenzie, you have some names. And to talk about some of those names, the man, the myth, the legend is here. Jay, how you doing this morning, man?
Ty, what's good, man? Thanks for having me. Per the norm, told you I wanted to come on through the haze because, man, this is Christmas for us, right? This is Christmas time. This is when streamers and content creators have the opportunity to separate themselves from everybody else. This is college football free agency. So there's nothing but greatness to talk about constantly. And we'll see the difference. The cream will rise to the top. And yeah, it's going to be, this has been exciting already. Thanks for having me, though.
Absolutely. And Blood asked me what I think about Stutzman heading into the draft. And I was just telling him, ironically, I was like, oh, you know what? We're going to talk about that. I'm going to wait for Jay, but you're here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up right where I was kind of leaving off, man. I can't say I'm surprised. It's one of those situations where strike while the iron's hot. And I'm interested to see where he goes in the draft, because his growth under Brent Venables has been impressive to see. Some NFL team is going to be very happy with Danny Stutzman. I talked about this in a video releasing later, Jay, that he was snubbed from the Butkus list, right? Like I don't think any objective college football fan will say otherwise. And I think half the Texas fans that argue that he wasn't are doing so facetiously, right? And just in the good nature of college football rivalries, which is all fair. Talk to us about Stutzman leaving, because it is a hit, but you do have some depth that got some work this year. Young depth, they have to learn, but talented depth nonetheless.
Yeah, so losing Stutzman, it's a big one, right? You're losing a starter, 2-year starter who we saw do a massive jump from year 1 to year 2. And the funny thing is, we talk about him making a massive jump. Last year, he led the Big 12 in tackles, right? In total. So he was still elite talent. He just couldn't get in the right spots. And you said it very eloquently. He was learning, even as a natural linebacker, he was still learning one of the more complex defenses in college football that requires you to be the quarterback on that side of the ball at the same time. So him doing a lot of learning, him doing a lot of research. Blood, I owe you a shirt. Okay, I'll work on that. We'll talk about that if I owe you one. But he was able to grasp it. It was like the Iowa State game, and I mentioned this in one of my videos. The Iowa State game last year is when you saw the light bulb finally click on for him. Teams kept baiting him in so many plays with slants and outs to where it was easy for him to get out of position. Iowa State, they did it to him twice, and then it was like, wait a minute. They're doing what everybody tells me that they're going to do to me anyway. They're going to keep baiting me. Next play, picks off Hunter Deckard, takes it to the house. And you're like, bro, everybody's done this entire season. Where have you been? And then it's just from there, he's been that leader. And so it hurts losing someone that talented, especially when they have at least one more year left, if not 2, going into the SEC, trying to build this defense. But you said it right. We've got a lot of young talent that stepped up. And before I get into the young talent, that Buckets Award, yeah, he was snubbed. I talked about it a while back. When I saw the list of players, I think the reason why he got left off is because he missed that game and a half. If he didn't miss that game and a half, he's easily on that list because he was a Buckets front runner with as many tackles for losses he had. He finished with 16. He probably would have finished with over 20, which might have been an OU record if I'm correct, ever since they actually started counting it as a stat. He's been doing everything. He's the leader. He's the one that's been pointing out and teaching. He's the one that's been helping teach Kanik how to play linebacker. And I believe what's funny is Kanik had a struggling year this year. He didn't struggle as bad as his first year. He struggled a little bit. He struggled this year, undoubtedly. But he was still better than what Stutzman was last season when we talked about his struggles. So Kanik has the opportunity to make that next leap. And so I anticipate him, Kip Lewis, in which we watched him in goal line stance. That man shut me up. I critiqued Kip as, dog, I need you to put on 20 pounds, maybe 30.
He's the one that I really like. I've been saying it to you since that spring game. I text you and I was like, 10 is flying off of this screen on my rewatch. I think he's very talented.
He's everywhere. And then when those goal line stands hit, and he was the one in the middle of all of them, it was him and Deshaun McCullough, which to me are 2 players that kind of surprised me only because of their size. We know they need to get bigger, but they still showed up like against Texas and Red River, which that's what Kip jumped off the screen for me from the beginning, but that's the game that just, it laser printed in my brain. Kip Lewis is going to be elite at some point. He found the hole before the running back did, got in there, and grabbed Brooks by the ankles to stop him on the first play from the goal line. I was like, oh, this kid's different. Then you started seeing him shift around on there and go. So you got him. You've got Kobe McKenzie, who's still learning the system. But when you play him, he gives you those moments of just glimmer. You're like, wow, okay, there's something here. The only unfortunate thing is that when Stutzman's out, you kind of start to see the raw talent come out from all of these players. But the good thing is they've had half a season of playing in the role. They'll have this entire offseason one more time. So that'll be 2 full off seasons in this system. And they're going to probably walk in and be like, yep, we're running this bad boy. So those 3 are the 3 that we know will be rotating. Add in Lewis Carter, who's like a man-child. Everybody talks about him, how ridiculous he is in the weight room. I was doing some searching on him on YouTube. I mean, on X or whatnot, on the X Bird, because I just wanted to see some of the high school stuff from him. Dude, that dude was like 208 pounds, bench pressing 405 multiple times with ease. And I'm like, oh, So the jokes about him asking for weights as a 4-year-old for Christmas was facetiously funny while at the same time possibly true because the dude's yoked. And he talked about how he did push-ups since he was in middle school, and which has helped him towards his strength goals. And you can see it. He jumps off the screen. And so you're going to have this massive human being running around. And then when Phil Picciotti gets healthy, the big linebacker that played at IMG, he had surgery that made that way. That's the reason why he redshirted this year. He'll be back healthy next year. The linebacker room is the one place I am not concerned, which is crazy to say when losing a player like Stutzman.
Yeah, I think the only thing is I don't have any worries, and worry isn't the right word. I don't have any questions, right? Because I think when a lot of people, when you hear questions at most other places, it's usually a negative connotation. If you're a new viewer here, when I say question, I do literally mean question. There's no loaded here. It's not a negative. It's my curiosity being expressed to you all. How do you replace his field IQ? That's the one for me, because I look at no shortage of talent, but that talent has to have the experience in order to replace that. And Kanik has been there, but Stutz was still that field general, right? And if you're in a position where you're losing Stutz and Bowman, still got leaders on that defense. I don't doubt that there are leaders on that defense. I mean, like quarterbacks you get what I mean though, right? Like that experience, the play calling. What are you thinking Bowman's going to do?
So I'm anticipating a return from Billy. He got first team All-American, which to me should have bumped his draft grade, but I'm wondering if at his size, some teams are still having questions, which I don't see why. I mean, you've seen
not in this NFL. I mean, it's a fast-paced league.
Right. You need some speedy guys that have a good ball hawking ability. I'm guessing for him to be his tackling, because I don't think he's the best tackler.
He's not the worst.
He's not bad. He's probably average. He's probably average, in which you probably want a little bit more exceptional at the role that you were playing, which would be strong safety, right? You probably need a better tackler. Now, I'm going to be honest. I think he'd do really good in like the Seahawks defensive system that Pete Carroll runs. That will probably be the team where I'm just like, hey, man, if you want to go pro, if you can get Seattle to talk to you, whew, you do well. I mean, the Cam Chancellor, he's smaller than Cam Chancellor, but, when you look at some of the players that have come through that linebacker room, that safety room with the Seahawks, I think he can run Carroll's system, but it's all based upon, how he stacks up to what they're trying to do. But I anticipate us getting Bowman back, so we'll get at least one general on the defensive side back to help guide the young pups. But again, as you mentioned, and I've talked about this ad nauseum, we're very young on the defensive side this year. Next year, we'll have guys with 2 years of experience in the system and playing at this level. That's going to help us. Like Miguel Chavis, the defensive end coach on the defensive line for Oklahoma, tweeted out a picture. It was 4,240 snaps. That's how many snaps Oklahoma had last year on the defensive side of the ball from freshmen and redshirt freshmen. Number 1 in the nation among ranked teams. That's huge. For us to finish season 10-2 and have that many snaps from underclassmen, next season they should be even more prepared as things are installed. Because if I'm correct, Venables is infamous for installing 10 to 20 new plays defensively per week. He just slowly adds it in based upon things that is needed based upon the opponent. Styles make fights, as our guy Steven over at Fanatic Perspective will say. That's what, you see Venables doing. And so because these guys have that experience, that many snaps and understanding and reading of some of these complex offenses, I think we'll be just fine next year. It would have been nice to have just that additional insurance policy with the Stutzman and Bowman on defense. But I think we'll be okay with just Bowman.
See, I almost have to wonder, man, if Stutz is going, I would have to imagine Bowman's grade is at least where Stutz's grade is if he got the All-American. I'm curious to see if Bowman goes, because if Stutz is going and they both, from what I understand, plan on playing in the bowl game, right? Because doesn't Stutz plan on playing in the bowl game?
So the last report that I saw was that he's going to opt out of that game. So
I've heard, okay, fair enough.
I've heard 3 opt-outs potentially. Him, Tyler Guyton, which
Makes
I
sense.
get it. You know, he was coming off of, I think he had like a concussion against the week before BYU. Just, I'm having a brain fart at the moment. I think it's West Virginia. And so he didn't play the BYU game. He could have. I think he got cleared, but they decided not to play him, and he didn't really play TCU because you didn't really need to. Guyton has been slated as a mid to late first round draft pick. No point in him playing. Go ahead and rest up, prep your body, go. Get out of there. And I love that Baby Ben pointed out Earl Thomas was 5'10". That's my point. That's why I really like Bowman at Seattle, because he could really feel into what they're doing. That was the name I was looking for, was Earl Thomas. So thank you so much, Baby Ben, for pointing that out. But yeah, I anticipate Guyton. I anticipate Stutzman going in and sitting out. There's probably 1 to 2 more that may just go ahead and pass it and pass the torch on to the young players, in which I know some people don't like that. If you're going pro, I actually want you to go ahead and opt out, because I like to use the bowl game as a measuring stick for the young players, right? This is a good opportunity for them to go out in a situation that in theory does not matter. You're just playing, unless you're playing in the playoffs, it's a game that's just a game that's to get your fans out of town and go hang out and cheer for their team. But it's a great opportunity to see young guys against a defense, that another team that they don't traditionally see on a regular basis, right? Us going against Arizona, which Arizona's favored for a reason. They're really good. They're a really good team. They're really underrated.
And they're young.
Young. Yeah, and as we talked about on the Bleacher Report prediction show, that was one team that I keyed in the week before they played USC. I watched them. I was like, there's something here. And then the USC game, I was like, oh, yeah, they're a lot better than we expect. So we'll see. I love that Steven and Topher really hopes Jada can convince that man to stay. If he got an opportunity to go pro, he's going to go. But at the same time, I think Bowman stays. So,
well, and in fairness, I thought Stutz was playing in the bowl game, and if he's opting out, and I know Bowman has publicly stated he is playing in then you're probably right. I for whatever reason, I thought that Stutz was playing, and I was like, well, if Stutz is still gonna play and go to the league, maybe Bowman will do the same thing, and that's just them, bowing out like of OU is like capped. You get what I'm saying. But no, if Stutz isn't playing, then that clearly creates a delineation to me that we can distinguish from. I'm excited about that. I'll tell y'all what, coming out tomorrow, something you need to be looking forward to. I sat down with Nick Carparelli, the executive director of bowl season. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the guy who sits in the room. He just got done talking to Greg Sankey, all of these commissioners. He's in Vegas right now speaking. This man plans all of the bowl games and has been a massive part of the evolution of what bowl games will continue to look like under the expanded college football playoffs. This is a guy that really brought to life what NIL and bowl games could be last year with the Cheez-It Bowl. He has some cool ideas coming, especially this year with the Pop-Tart Bowl. I'll leave that conversation for tomorrow, but just be looking out, because he and I sat down and it was an unbelievable conversation, and we discussed why bowl games are so key to college football. Y'all are going to be in a really good one, man. And I know that there's a lot of people upset that y'all didn't make a New Year's Six, and I think that that's well placed. You're playing a really underrated team, and I think it's as good as a New Year's Six. Not like necessarily the bowl location. I mean the quality of that game. Arizona's really good, like sneaky good. And y'all are really young, talented, trending up, very good. It's going to be a fantastic game.
I'm excited. I'm actually excited about playing them. And don't get it twisted. When I talked about us going to a New Year's Six with, and not you, Ty, but just people, the viewers or whatnot, I took quorum with the fact that, when we went through the qualifications for a New Year's Six, how we outdid the competition. But that's where that the selection committee confused a lot of us, is because of the inconsistency around that. Some teams, they want the best win. Some teams, they want the best loss. And it was like, but that doesn't make any sense. If you're going to be consistent, be consistent. But they didn't give us that. But I never had any issues with playing against Arizona, because, like I said, it's a really good measuring stick, especially for our young players against their young players.
And their
Arizona's
young
not going to be a punk going into the Big 12 or Big whatever they're going to be next year. They may be a team that can run. I'm surprised that Jed Fish didn't get more attention for other head coaching jobs. I'm surprised no one else tried to poach him. I'm really surprised A&M didn't try, even though Elko was probably the smartest hire for them. But Jedd Fisch is going to be a name to keep your eyes out for if another big job comes open in the next 2 years. He's probably going to be one of the first people that people are going to call, unless Arizona can find a way to up the ante and up the dollars to keep the man.
Yeah, I real surprised that he didn't get more looks this year, especially when we look at some of the hires. I think there were good hires made at a lot of institutions, but he was a guy that you couldn't argue with the results in a Pac-12 this year where the Pac was decent. I mean, in terms of what we have seen the Pac to be for about the previous 10 years, the Pac was as competitive this year as, I mean, I can remember it in a long time. Really impressive to see what they did. Jay, let's take a pause from transfer portal. Let's take a pause from bowl. We need to talk about recruiting because there's major announcements coming up. Oklahoma locked in a battle for an offensive lineman, EPL, right? Very exciting stuff there. That's a battle that's been all over the place. UCF has emerged. Oklahoma has emerged. He is a player that as the recruiting cycle has gone on, he has continued to soar up the board. We also have a 5-star offensive tackle announcing today, and I have zero idea where he will go. Jordan Seaton from IMG, choosing between Ohio State, Tennessee, Miami, Florida, Alabama, and I am missing one, and I don't remember who it is off the top of my head. But Tennessee looks to be in a good place there. Yeah. Ohio State, real hard to argue with what they do. Alabama's in a position where just when you think they're out, they come right back in it. Apparently, Nick Saban, I don't know that he got the last word, Jay, but apparently he made a last-minute phone call, and it's just now we don't know what's going to happen. And then we also have another situation with Alabama, Jay, where Ryan Williams, top 10 player in the class of 2025, has put out that December 10th an announcement is coming. What that announcement will be, we don't know. He's currently committed to Alabama, and there is a lot of speculation that it could be a few things. One, a flip from Bama to Auburn. Two, it could be a reclassification, and he enrolls early at Alabama. Or three, it could be a reclassification and flip. So we're going to figure it out. Personally, I feel like he's going to reclassify. Let's talk about some recruiting. What are you thinking in the recruiting space? Because I know transfer portal is the conversation piece right now. But don't forget, early signing day just around the corner. Start us off with EPL.
So EPL is one player it's been an interesting recruiting setup. Now, he's one of those freakish athletic guys that we've seen. And to answer that question, Travis, Jedd Fisch was doing a good job of almost getting the top offensive and defensive player in the state of Arizona, something that Arizona never does.
Oregon
Arizona does not keep their best.
But
then Oregon threw Elijah rushing a massive bag, and there was no way that you're going to win that battle. But the state of Arizona never keeps their best players. Go back and look the last 15 years. You don't see the top offense and defensive players staying in state. They always leave. It's the most daunting. It's crazy. Like, I don't understand how that happens, but I digress. EPL, he's one of those freakish athletic interior linemen. If you go to his X account, you'll see on there him running 100-yard dash. And when you see the 100-meter dash, and you see him run, you're like, who's this ginormous human being running past you? And you're like, I don't want that chasing me. The thing is, he won't be chasing you. He'll be pushing you around on the offensive line. And I think that Oklahoma is sitting in a really good position right now with him. I know that he's been trying to get out for a visit, never made it. I think he got one official visit out of us. And then Beatonbow went to go see him. And rumor has it that, a lot of crystal balls started to come in towards our direction. It's like, oh, okay. So Oklahoma may have made some movement. But, dude, there's a few teams that would love to have his service. I know UCF is pushing hard because he's local. Mom probably wants him to stay close to home because it's so much easier for her to see our baby boy right up the street around the corner instead of going across, 4 or 5 states. Good thing is that Oklahoma is going to be in the SEC and we'll be playing in a lot of states very close to where mom is, right? We play in Alabama. We'll play against Auburn next season. So we'll be in the Alabama area.
God bless.
Exactly. We'll have fun talking about that one.
God
We'll be
bless.
playing at Death Valley at LSU, so we're not going to be that much further away as well. We'll be in Mississippi over at Oxford, playing Ole Miss, and so being traveling, they'll mom have opportunity to be able to see him on a regular basis, and so we'll be working our butts off to pull it. And even at that, Caden Green making one of the freshmen, what was it? Freshman All-American list for 247. A couple of their guys on the recruiting podcast put out that they had Caden Green as a true freshman on their true freshman list. With young guys getting snaps, that means that we're giving them the opportunity to play if you're good enough. Now, is it because we had to, or is it because we want to? In a lot of situations, it feels like we want to play young guys. So EPL has a good chance of getting a few snaps here or there. That may be really enticing.
But and maybe I'm in the fringe on this, Jay. The argument of did we have to or need to, sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes you have to play the kid because he is proving he's undeniable, right? And like if that's the case, now not only do you want to, you got to. So sometimes these are good problems to have, right? No doubt about it. And I think Caden Green might have been into that category.
Yeah, the way that he got out there. I mean, look, go back and watch the Texas game, right? And you see Devontae Sweat whipping up on our left guard. That was young guy Troy Everett, came from Appalachian State. He's more of a natural center than he is guard, but we played him out there, right? And you saw Sweat cooking. And you're like, okay, what's going to happen? Well, they took out Troy and they put Caden Green in. Go watch when Caden went in there. Show me where you see Sweat doing something. You start to notice a difference in how that line was blocking. And young Caden was out there putting the muscle in. I'm just telling you, go watch the tape. The tape shows you something there. You can, and it's blatantly obvious there's a difference between the way Troy Everett looks and the way Caden Green looks. So it's not like it's hard to tell which guy is which. It's pretty blatantly obvious. One's a young white dude, the other one's a young black dude. So you'll notice that first, and then you'll start seeing the way that he muscles around. Like I said, Troy's more of a natural center, and that's where he most likely will play next season if Andrew Rain goes ahead and heads into the draft. But no, you could tell that the dude's talented. Like he's a tackle that's now at guard, and they realize that, we're gonna leave you at guard because you're just this darn good. You're probably gonna go first round as a guard if you continue to play this way. And so, barring injury, knock on wood, I think we're solidified there. But adding him, EPL, and Daniel Akinkumi, oh gosh, I just watched Akinkumi pressing almost a ton with the leg press. Terrified of what the potential is with some of this line.
100%. Yeah, y'all got some really talented young players, especially on that offensive line. 5 till midnight asks, is it true that Jackson Arnold was clocked at over 20 miles per hour? Yep, at Denton Guyer. I think right at this stadium, if I was athletic, I might be able to hit it with a football, but like it's right down the street from my house. I think he was clocked at 20. Really, he's a sneaky athletic dude, Midnight. Like he's got some get up and go to him, right? I think a lot of people look at him and he's a bigger dude. And you'd think like, okay, you're going to be someone who's tough to bring down, physical type quarterback. He's more athletic than a lot of people give him credit for. Like, I would not be surprised at all to see Luttrell get him out there in space. He's got that ability, right? Like, I mean, he took one to the crib that ended up getting called back. What was that, in the spring game?
Yeah.
Yeah,
called a hold, and he just went ahead and just ran it himself. But at the same time, you're just like, oh, so you are that talented. Okay, I appreciate that. I didn't realize the athleticism was there.
Speaking of, as OU looks to get a big win, hopes to get a big win in EPL. Speaking of some young talent, just absolutely shining, ladies and gentlemen, as a true freshman, cracking not only first team All SEC, but Pro Football Focus's All-American team, first team, Caleb Downs, has been sensational. Personally, Jay, I'm going to read you these stats, and I want you to tell me if I might be a homer, and that's fine. I think everybody or most people who are here have known that since Caleb Downs committed to Alabama, that has been the guy that I have been like, this kid is going to be different. I thought there was a real argument he should have been the number one player in the class. Jay, how many times did I tell you that heading into the season that I thought, hey, there's a principled argument for Caleb Downs to be number one in the nation?
Oh no, there you've been on the hype train as we see PG pointing out that we're gonna keep this hype train going. And hey, you weren't lying. Like we talked about this, that Caleb Downs, the way that he plays the game, the way that he sees the field, his athleticism, yeah, you gotta put him on the field. And the unfortunate thing for him was fortunate and unfortunate is that you had to throw him at the strong safety position, one of the toughest positions to play in a Nick Saban defense. And so he had a lot of learning on the fly. But the good thing is as the season progressed, you started to see all of the wheels turning properly for him. Okay, let me adjust here. Let me do this. Let me do that. Because that was the only, and we all know, if you've listened to me before, I'll explain this to you real quick for those that are uninitiated in my takes. I don't like playing freshmen in key positions on both offense and defense at all. And it's because everybody has natural habits and tendencies. And once a team figures out what you traditionally will do, they'll exploit it. Most freshmen don't adjust. That's just they play the game with a natural instinct and a natural knack and they go. That was what happened to Downs in that Texas game. They just kept baiting him and baiting him and baiting him. But because he's so talented, you got to find a way to scheme him off the field, off the play, to the opposite sides where you don't have to deal with them. But as the season went on, you started to see all of Caleb Downs' tendencies change. You started to notice that he recognized, oh, you're trying to bait me. Let me shift to this. Let me listen to coaches. Because even though you listen to coaches, you still naturally are going to do what you typically would do anyway. You are who you are. And he did a really good job of adjusting his play style to where the coaches were giving him those warnings of, hey, watch out for this. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. You could see the wheels turning, and he just became even more elite as the season went on. And so him and Peyton Bowen were the two guys I was like, man, if you get them on the field, they're players you have to find a way to play, especially when healthy. But you also got to protect them from themselves. You know what I'm saying? That was the key thing. Downs just did a great job of adjusting throughout the season and just made it happen. He said, I'm going to take this strong safety position. I know it's difficult, but I'm going to be your Mika Fitzpatrick. And he really looked like it as a young freshman. And yeah, I hate that y'all got him. I'm terrified of him next season.
Yeah, Texas Homer and I were talking before the season. And before the last 2 years as Texas and Bama have played, Texas Homer and I have enjoyed those phone calls so much. We have had like 4-hour phone calls just breaking down like, oh, well, here, everything. He was surprised when I was like, no, they have Downs slotted at strong safety. And he was like, wait, they don't have him at free? I was like,
I thought it was free too.
They have him at strong. And the reason why he was like, that's so risky is like, because he's so talented as a true freshman, let him go out there and play on instinct. Just let him go out there and ball. At strong safety, you have to process everything. Like you are the quarterback of the entire secondary. You have got to process everything. And he's like, that's a lot to put on a true freshman shoulders. My goodness. And he did it. I'm going to read you these stats, Jay. And I want to know what you think. Is this Thorpe worthy? 64 solo tackles. He's got 1 forced fumble, 2 interceptions, 3 passes defended. If we look, he's actually got 99 total tackles because he plays strong so much, and he plays a quasi linebacker sometimes when Alabama goes into some of their cover 3 situations. And he's got a punt return for a touchdown of like 73 yards. First punt return of the year that they put him in there for. He took it to the crib. I'm saying that kid is going to be a problem for years to come. I can't wait to see what he has going next year. And especially when you hear Kevin Steele talk about him, and he says that, and Kevin Steele, very veteran defensive coordinator, he said that whenever you work with a player like Caleb Downs, they come around once in about every 40 years.
Yeah, roughly once every, he said 30, 40 years. It's a rare talent to get. And yeah, he's definitely it. That's basically all that you can say.
PG's asking who will be better, Downs or Bowen.
I mean, I'm not going to answer that question in a non-serious manner. Like it's Caleb Downs. Downs and Peyton Bowen. They're close, but Downs has got him.
You know what's crazy? We were on with God, who was it? We were on the Bama Standard with a former DB that came from. Well, they're also different. PG. Like one of them plays the free, one of them plays the strong. So they are yeah, you can compare them because they're DBs, but they're also different in the way that they're going to be utilized. So it's not necessarily a fair comparison. That's why I have a hard time just being like, it's this one or this one, because they're going to be utilized differently. In fact, they could be on the field at the same time, which is what is terrifying about them.
They can play together, but I'm also if Bowman comes back, you'll see Bowen at free. When Bowman leaves, I sense they're gonna move Peyton to the strong.
5 till midnight, you're going to find no disagreement from me. I completely agree. Bowman should have been on the Thorpe. There's zero disagreement.
Both of them should have been on that list.
Well,
it didn't make any sense.
But 3 pick sixes.
Yeah.
What do you have? 6 interceptions?
Yes.
I mean,
half of them went back for touchdowns.
Downs had an amazing season. But if you're saying, hey, this guy got snubbed from the Thorpe, this guy got snubbed from the Thorpe, I agree they both should have been there. At least for me, Downs is like, okay, you're a freshman. You got at least 2 more runs at this bad boy, right? Like, at least. Bowman, like, what more do I need to do, man? Like, zero disagreement from here, 5 till. And PG said it earlier, zero disagreement from here.
I think both of them got snubbed personally. It didn't make any sense for either one of them to not be on that list because of the way they performed. It was pretty absurd to see that your Thorpe Award didn't have one guy with all those pick sixes and then a freshman that put up the numbers that he did. Like, you could tell that he was one of the anchors on that defense. But at the same time, whatever they want to do with the award, it is what it is at this point. But if Billy Bowman has a really good showing in the bowl game, I mean, you may hear something about his grade getting better. He has till January 15th to declare anyway. So I sense that what happens in the Alamo Bowl will probably be a good determining factor for him.
Very true. Very true. Well, going back, we're talking Caleb Downs. Now we need to talk about some Bama recruiting, Jay.
Give it to me.
Because like I said, there's a chance that Ryan Williams, this is a player everybody out there needs to be watching right now. Because Auburn is doing everything they can to flip him. And Auburn has flipped a 5-star linebacker from Georgia. They flipped a 5-star wide receiver from Texas A&M. They flipped a quasi 5-star wide receiver from Alabama. They've been a force on the recruiting trail. Do not be disenfranchised into believing that Auburn can't play the NIL game as well as anybody else out there. They've got a lot more money than I think people realize. You know that, what is it, the Yellowwood?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Whenever you have like the construction, if you go to Yellowwood,
yeah,
right? That's Auburn owned, right? Like that's their biggest donor. He owns Yellowwood, if I'm not mistaken. So they got money, man. Like they can play and I'm not saying they can play the NIL game. They can play it real well. And Hugh Freeze is there now. I mean, he can generate excitement there. Ryan Williams. Oh, Terrell, I will say from a little bit of, I don't think that that's the factor right now. Like, yes, they do have his quarterback. His quarterback is amazing. But right now, from everything I've heard from people near, this is a Bama-Auburn race. Texas has tried to get him over there. They've had him for visits. He's had a great time. As we sit right now, and there's a lot can change, this is a Texas and Auburn race. And Auburn's doing everything they can to flip him. And in fact, not long ago, he was talking to an On3 reporter from Auburn, and he was saying, oh, you have a big decision coming December 10th. What are you going to do? You going to reclassify? And Ryan Williams said, I might flip. Like, this is a dude who knows how to play the media.
Yep.
Here's the thing, Jay. If he reclassifies, it's scary to say, he's still going to be a 5-star.
Yep.
Like, this is a kid, they're arguing he might be the number 1 player in the class of 2025. That's how good he is. Like, unbelievably talented. So this is a battle everybody has to watch, as well as Jordan Seaton, who will be deciding later today. Now, Jordan Seaton, I have absolutely zero idea of. Absolutely zero idea what he does. Have you heard anything on that one?
The lean that I'm hearing the most when it comes to Jordan is Tennessee. Supposedly Tennessee is
Yeah, good for them.
dropping bags to get that boy there. And granted, it makes sense. If you shore up that offensive line and keep it tight for Nico over the next couple of years with a player like Jordan Seaton, yeah, you got a good chance of competing in the SEC for years to come. You got to have good trenches, and that's what Tennessee is recognized. What Josh Heupel is recognized as a staff, as a head coach with his staff. We need to make sure that our trenches are strong, and I can totally see them doing that, right? I can totally see them getting that player of that caliber for IMG out there. I mean, he's good. Like, I've watched his tape. He's good. He's really good. And a lot of teams wanted him, but I'm sensing it's probably going to be Tennessee is the team that I put my money on.
Tennessee or Ohio State for me. And I can't count out Alabama. And the only reason I can't count out Alabama is because he said a few months ago that Alabama was the leader in his process, right? That they were in the lead. And the only reason, even though I've still heard Tennessee, I've heard Ohio State, heard a lot of good things there. I know Nick Saban had a phone call this week, reportedly went well. And the only other reason why I'm watching this so much, Jay, Tyler Booker and J.C. Latham are both starting on Alabama's offensive line. I mean, the pipeline of IMG offensive linemen to Alabama has been impressive. You're talking Evan Neal, J.C. Latham, Tyler Booker, and they just send them to the NFL. J.C. Latham, the next one to go to the NFL. And Tyler Booker is going to be a first rounder. That guy's going to be so good. He is an unbelievable piece for that Alabama offensive line. I am so happy he's there. It's that pipeline that I just keep looking at and saying, they have a chance, but I would say right now, if you forced me to pick, I think Tennessee, Ohio State are probably out in front. Now, Terrell asks, who is Auburn's quarterback? I know Thorne isn't good. Is he still there? 100%. And then he asks, why would a great wide receiver go somewhere that the quarterback situation is unsettled at best? Fair question. They have Cam Coleman, who's a 5-star wide receiver. If I'm not mistaken, isn't he like the number 2 wide receiver in the nation? Number 3. I mean, he's unbelievable.
By most standards, he's number 2, he's number 1 on ESPN's list, but he's either 2 or 3 on everybody else's. And he's a 5-star plus. So he's an elite considered wide receiver. He flipped his commitment recently over to Auburn. And so they're building something. They're building something over there.
They have Perry Thompson, who is a 5-star depending. So I listen, Terrell, I agree with you. I don't know why, but they're getting 5-star wide receivers nonetheless.
And they're bringing in Walker White, who's the Little Rock quarterback. He's a 4-star. So they're bringing in additional talent to go around these players. And Thorne's not that great, but I'm gonna be real. Their head coach is Hugh Freeze, who does a really good job coaching offenses, right? We've seen him be able to figure it out with players that are subpar. We've seen it. Like, we joke at him for, he lost to a 4-letter acronym team his first year there, but, not to compare him to the GOAT, but Saban did as well his first year, right? It just happens. It happens as you're trying to refresh a team. Hell, Auburn went and did a smear campaign on their former head coach to get him out of there and failed. So then they just had to fire him and pay him. It's like they tried their hardest to find a way to not have to pay this dude, and they still ended up having to pay this dude because their smear campaign did not work. So Hugh Freeze is going to figure it out. He's going to find it in whatever way, shape, or form. He's going to get himself a quarterback. He's going to get his team going. So as much as I would say there's a concern there, I don't think it'll be something long term.
Yeah, and listen, like I said when you first asked the question, Terrell, I typed in chat. That is a more than fair question. I am with you. If I was Ryan Williams, and if there was a flip-in question, LSU or Texas, that's where I would be looking if I wanted to play in the SEC. But Auburn, right? Like, that's the situation. And I completely agree with you. The quarterback play there isn't what you're going to get at Alabama, Texas, LSU. At least it hasn't been. Hugh Freeze is there, and let's be honest, they're after Cam Ward. And we just talked about, they have more NIL capabilities than I think people realize, Jay. And
Yeah.
I think that that's going to be something we look at. And we talked about this as well, Midnight,
Yes,
the
he is.
possibility of a KJ Jefferson.
There's enough
And-
quarterbacks in the portal to actually replace and add something in that you need of quality. I mean, we've got
oh,
a good 15 quarterbacks that are more than capable of throwing the ball to those receivers.
he'll find something. Hugh Freeze will find something. That's going to be interesting to see where he goes. But yeah, Terrell, I do completely agree to you, man. Because if I'm Ryan Williams and I'm looking at it, Julian Sayin just got 5-star plus, and he's the #1 quarterback in the nation, and he'll be enrolling at Bama here very shortly and starting his workouts in the spring. If I'm Ryan Williams and I'm going to reclassify, I want to go where the #1 quarterback in the nation goes, and he's going to be stepping into Bama.
Yep.
So I'm 100% with you. I'm with you, man.
And at this rate as well, he's getting all these wide receivers. There's a quarterback in the portal that would definitely have no problem with being bagged, and his name is Cam Ward. We talked about how terrifying having that dude at Auburn would be. I bet you Auburn's in the conversations to win.
They are. Florida State, Auburn, Ohio State, some of the teams to look at there.
Imagine Cam. Jesus.
I try not to.
Well, I mean, either. I mean, I got to play him next year, so we'll be seeing that out there at Hare.
Yeah. I don't like
and
that.
And JT, real quick, I know that you're a little bit behind, but we talked about this a little bit on Bowman. His size, and someone mentioned it in the chat at the time as well, is Earl Thomas, right? You can have Bowman play the Earl Thomas role in that Pete Carroll defense, and he would be pretty good, right? That would be, the tackling has been some things I've heard as stuff that's being held against him in theory, but I don't think he's a bad tackler. He does get caught with his eyes in the backfield on occasion, but at the same time, he walked out with 3 pick sixes. I think that you would take that, right? Some over aggressive guys will give you. I mean, hell, that's what Diggs has done the entire time with the Dallas Cowboys. Diggs gives up the most yards of any corner in the NFL, and he also ends up the season with almost 10 interceptions. So it's kind of one of those, you live by the 3, die by the 3. You live by the pick, you die by the pick. So that's all that matters. And of course, here comes Ty's favorite hater coming in here to show his love of, for some reason, being a fan of the War Eagle just to terrorize you. But I digress.
It's not a War Eagle. It's a Stolen Valor Eagle.
Stolen Valor Eagle. But there's a lot of players that there's a lot of opportunity I put like that for who Auburn could go after at quarterback. There's enough. I'm looking at the list now. We're looking at I'd say there's about 20 quarterbacks in here that's probably capable of throwing the ball the way they need.
Oh yeah, Cam. They're going to go out and get someone. I just hope it's not Cam Ward, because I mean, Hugh's a creative guy, but geez,
that wouldn't be fair.
You just don't want him to have that.
Yeah, you don't think he doesn't deserve it.
No.
I would complain to the football commission about that. That's not something that we want to happen.
No. He doesn't need that. Now, one of the things we haven't yet talked about is the exodus at Texas A&M. Jay, you and I, we got to eat a little bit of crow, both of us. Mainly me, because both of us have kind of been along the same thought process of we may not see the exodus so many people anticipated. I've really hammered that point home here recently, saying like, hey, it just hasn't happened, right? Like, I think that you'll see some guys leave, but I just don't think it'll be this mass exodus that everybody anticipated. And then yesterday and the day before happened. And now I'm sitting there opening the cupboards at Texas A&M wondering, what in the world do you have left? There's not even crow in there for me to eat. I don't know what. I can eat some Stolen Valor Eagle, apparently, because that's about all they have in there. They didn't want to take that with them. Talk to me, man, about what's going on at A&M, because they have lost one of their best edge rushers, 2 of their most talented interior guys, one of their best secondary pieces, and Bryce Anderson was hacked yesterday. Wild things going on. Talk to me.
Look, I got to eat some crow here too, because I mean, I said it, I'm probably going to OPG a steak dinner if something does go down the way things are potentially going to go down. But this is what's funny. This isn't it. Like right now, we're seeing a lot of players. Majority are going to wait till after the bowl game is what the rumor is. With the NIL commitments and having to finish out certain things and certain obligations, they're probably going to be doing a bunch of commercials and stuff right before the bowl game, get people to the bowl, and then at that point, boom, they're out. And Dominic, you're 100% correct. Why not, you know, elevate Elijah Robinson when you know that he is literally the small linchpin that holds this entire dam together? You pull that out, the floodgates just bust open and water's flowing everywhere. That little pin should have been held. While at the same time, the other problem he ran into with E-Rob is that he's a Northeast guy. He played at Penn State. He's from that area. And guess what? Going to Syracuse with his best friend, Fran Brown.
And now
Running
Nick
the
Williams
defense there. And then Nick Williams is going to be also running the defensive line with you. Oh, no, you don't pass on that opportunity. And it may have been a situation where A&M did not want to bring Nick Williams back when he wanted to come back. I mean, there's a good chance because contrary to probably believe, coaches follow their friends. And that's why you see certain coaches with certain coaches. You're like, why would you go there? Why would you go do that? They're helping their friend out. Especially if it's one of those situations where they need to just kill time until the next opportunity comes up. That's what it is. So Nick and E-Rob both going up there to Syracuse makes sense. They're going back to the roots, back to the home area, especially for E-Rob. And so because of that, none of these players have any ties here. Now, Elijah Robinson's going to coach the bowl game, they said. I don't think he's leaving until after the Texas Bowl. But once that bowl's over and Elijah goes and gets his job done for Syracuse, oh my gosh, this is not it. A lot of these kids are going to they're going to hear Elko and them out, but then they're out. They're gone. They're going to go ahead and find new homes. And so the question is, and this is the question I ask, how damaged are these goods? Are these goods still the quality they were coming in as high 4 and 5-star talents? Or have they become so stuck in their ways that it's kind of not worth going after? We'll find out. A lot of these players have already started to get reached out to. They're having their conversations. And in a lot of these situations, it's a bag chase because that's why most of them went to A&M. They were dropping money and supposedly they weren't paying like they claimed. So there you go. And with that, and it's funny you mentioned the Penn State piece. I was going to mention this before, but I wanted to wait to coaching carousels. But this is probably a good opportunity. Manny Diaz might get the Duke job.
Yeah, I opened with that.
There's a defensive coordinator position open. I thought Elijah Robinson would have went there, to be absolutely honest, but he's followed his boy Fran, which I am not against. Makes sense. But one of those two jobs was definitely, if Fran didn't try to pull Elijah Robinson in, I promise you Penn State would have done the same. And you're going to see a whole bunch of these traditional Penn State defensive linemen out there at one of those two schools.
I'm going to tell you this right here. Penn State would have sent a blank check.
Oh, yeah.
To Elijah Robinson and said, fill it in. We don't need to look.
We don't care. Just come.
And PG put it in here. A&M wanted to bring back E-Rob, but they wanted him as a defensive line coach. They offered to make him the highest paid assistant coach in the nation. And at a certain point, Dominic, I do agree with you here. As much as E-Rob to Penn State would have been fantastic, their problem is offense. Let's get 100% understood. The main thing. They got to figure out offense. You're 100% right. Don't do it at the expense of defense, but 100%. I don't know.
But Penn State, I mean, they've got that. They added the offensive coordinator from Kansas. Anthony, I can't think of his last name. Starts with a K.
Yeah, no, they did. I'm excited about that. I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to try.
He's really good. Like, he's good.
Yeah.
I watched him give everybody fits. Have you seen Kansas be better with Lance Leipold and that team? That's their architect on the offensive side of the ball.
That's a good one.
He has been really, really, really good at leveraging the quarterback, moving, motions, everything. I mean, go watch the games again that Kansas played this year. Lots of motion, lots of movement, lots of confusion, and they make it happen. He's going to have a lot better talent at Penn State, so they're going to be really dangerous going forward.
Yeah.
Really dangerous.
Really dangerous. I just don't know why if you're A&M, and maybe they did, and so that's why all of this is going to be opinions. And if I am wrong, if an A&M fan hears me, I'm perfectly fine with being wrong. Please correct me. Why not offer him a situation similar to it like Oklahoma does with the co-offensive coordinator? Make him assistant head coach, co-offensive coordinator. You can still or co-defensive coordinator. I apologize.
Right.
And then, but they just didn't want to make him a defensive coordinator. And Terrell put it in here a while ago, and I meant to bring it up. Terrell, thank you for bringing it up because it's a huge point. The whole team wanted him, Jay.
Ty, the whole team wanted him as head coach first, and they advocated hard. If you advocating at that level for a guy, that many dudes, that should tell you something. We probably should find a way to keep this guy around, not only to pacify the children, but because there's obviously something special about what he's doing. Because he attracted a lot of talent there, right? Like, and it's funny because that was always my argument to people when it came to a complete exodus or exodus, as we're seeing the Ags leaving, was everyone was talking about Jimbo Fisher. And I'm just like, no one cares about Jimbo. Listen to me and listen to me crystal clear. None of these players care about Jimbo Fisher. What Jimbo Fisher did do right was the staff he put around him in a lot of spots, except from the offensive side, especially at offensive coordinator. Wasn't very good. Elijah Robinson is literally that linchpin. And this is exactly what we were waiting for, is for him to just pull out that little pin. As thin as that little pin is, it's holding back that floodgate and the water ain't going nowhere. The minute that bad boy got pulled, done deal. Done. And that's why I always argued. Unless Elijah Robinson's gone, I'm not even considering a conversation about Texas A&M players leaving. Now that it's confirmed that he's going to Syracuse, oh yeah, floodgates are open. We are open for business, folks. And we just got to hope that somebody can get their hands on some of these players. You got to hope that all of them leave. Because in some cases, you may see some that are 4 deep in the depth chart. See now that they're at the 1, maybe 2. Might decide to stick around and see how it goes next season. Unfortunately, that's some players that, some of these Sooner fans really want. We just got to wait and see if it actually happens.
Yeah, PG makes a great point here. He said, let's not discount the passing of Terry Price. That was the reason to overturn
that was
the
other
portal.
one too.
That's a great point, PG. When you mix both of those, tough situation to be in.
And that's why I pointed out the Elijah Robinson piece, because the Terry Price piece was huge, but Elijah still held it together. Even as small of a pin as he did, he held it together. I mean, you would have imagined these players hitting the portal after Price passed, because he passed, beginning of the year?
Yeah.
So the opportunity was there. The spring, everyone was talking about in spring portal door dates that's when people were going to leave. And I was like, no, Elijah Robinson's still there. Well, Jimbo Fisher gets fired. Elijah Robinson's still there. When Elijah Robinson's not there, I will gladly entertain this conversation. But until he's gone, there's no reason for me to talk about this. Now that he's gone, you're seeing people leave. And that's what it is. The Price situation was key for some of them. But Elijah still held together. That's how good of a coach he is.
Yeah, Terrell makes another good point here. One of the main reasons and that was something I'd always say, Terrell, man, like we'd be talking about A&M and everybody would ask me, why are these talented players going to A&M? And my answer would be, I don't have an answer for all the positions outside of defensive line. And I would always argue, I'd be like, look, the only thing that makes sense is defensive line. Because E-Rob and what those boys have been doing over there on that defensive line, that's real big boy work. Like they've been putting it in. They've been recruiting well. They send them. So that makes sense to me. I'm not claiming that it's the best defensive line development I've ever seen in the nation. Not my contention. I'm saying It's good enough to make sense, right? If we talk about them having an NIL facility and being good enough at developing defensive line, it's like, okay, yeah, that checks out. That 100% checks out. Now that he's not there, I'm really excited to see what Syracuse does. You're talking about now they have a presence from Georgia in Nick Williams there. You got E-Rob there, Fran Brown there. I mean, that's going to be fun. Let's talk about some transfer portal wins, right? Because Oklahoma, you guys got one. Spencer Brown coming from Michigan State. And Jay, it's really interesting because he embodies something I talked about not long ago. Well, at this point, it might be long ago. Time has flown by. A while ago, I talked about Brent Venables, and a big question OU fans always ask me is, why doesn't not Brent Venables, I apologize, Bill Bedenbaugh. Why doesn't Bill Bedenbaugh win more of like the 5-star or 4-star, like the blue chip offensive line battles. He's one of the best offensive line coaches in the nation, arguably the best. So why doesn't he clip at the same rate as some other really good offensive line coaches? Well, my theory, and I have no way to know if I'm right, but my theory is that Bill Bedenbaugh self-selects so many guys out of what he's looking for that by the time he gets the guys that's like, okay, you have the qualities I'm looking for, it's just a much smaller pool. What I mean when I say that, he values versatility. He wants a guy that can play left tackle and right tackle and be able to flip them all over the formation. That's something that we know he likes. You got that in Spencer Brown. He started an entire season at left tackle and then at right tackle. He knows how to play both, and that versatility is big to Bill Bedenbaugh. I also find it compelling where you might be missing both tackles moving to the SEC. Go get an experienced cat. Bring him in here. He knows these. He's seen things. Talk to me about Spencer Brown, and then we need to talk about, I think Texas is going to land a huge win in the transfer portal for a safety that as soon as he hit Clemson's campus, started making a difference. But first, talk to me about Spencer Brown.
Spencer Brown is one of those players that, so he reminds me 100% of us bringing in Walter Rouse last year. And you are exactly right. Bedenbaugh likes guys that are very versatile. He wants a offensive lineman that can play all positions because you don't know where you're going to be plugged in, and he's going to teach and train you into that. And I want to get to Chris's question too. That's a very good conversation piece. But I like the Spencer Brown pickup because 6'6", 310, ability to move and ability to block, it's not easy to find. He had, like, I saw in the notes about him, 870 plus snaps, gave up 8 sacks his entire time in those 800 snaps. That's absurd. That's really good. And it's very hard to find guys that are going to be, it's going to bat 1,000 when it comes to, you know, snaps and sacks allowed, which would be 0. But that's a really good ratio. And that's something that you want. You want a guy that can walk in, play immediately, and one of those personalities that can gel with others quickly, right? And so you bring in him, put him on the right, which is the perfect spot because think about it. We brought in Walter Rouse and we put him on the left. Now, Spencer Brown, you would want him on the right. And the reason is Walter Rouse on the left was Dylan Gabriel's front side because Dylan's a lefty. So it's perfect to have a veteran guy in front of him that Dylan can focus on the play in front of him and not the lineman coming after him. Now, on the right side, you're going to do that for Jackson Arnold. He's going to have a veteran presence at right tackle who's going to be able to keep dudes away long enough for Jackson Arnold to see them as well as throw. And on his blind side, he'll have Jacob Sexton as well as Caden Green, in which we've talked about Caden Green. You'll have those two blocking that blind side and them working together. We've watched them look really good. Yeah, that's what you're going to want. Because, I mean, Sexton played in the bowl game against Florida State, and then he hurt his leg, and that's why he's been out most of the season. That's why you haven't really seen him. Now that he's gotten healthy and he's playing, pretty excited about what he looks like going forward with Green. And so Spencer Brown just solidifies the right side of the field and allows the young players to continue to develop. Because he's not going to play every snap. You're going to have to bring in and rotate the young guys. But the good thing is that you'll have him there and he can play majority of the snaps just because he's got the experience to do it. And so, yeah, Bedenbaugh, and this has always been my theory, Bedenbaugh likes transfer guys. It feels like now that the transfer portal's open, more so than some of these recruits. And this is the reason why. Everyone complains that Bedenbaugh doesn't get top-rated guys. Go look at his past classes. He's brought in some top-rated guys. A lot of them just don't work out. And the unfortunate thing is that it takes the players portion of it to make it all the way work out. Some players, the concepts don't grasp. The concepts just don't stick. He's got a lot of top 100 offensive linemen that he's brought in, but he also understands that there's certain players that he needs in order to achieve the goals that he wants to. Hence why you see him going for the guys in the portal. Tyler Guyton's a great example. Dude was a defensive tackle coming in at TCU, moved over to the offensive side and really didn't play. Super raw talent. We brought him in 1 year. Boom. He looks like a starting offensive tackle. Battles with Jared Verse in the bowl game, and in this past season made himself a first-round pick. Anton Harrison was another player that he had that was a pretty highly rated player. Ended up getting drafted first round. They exist. They're just not the players you all want him to get. Believe me, he knows what he wants, and he's going after the players that make the most sense.
Bro.
Uh-oh.
Jordan Seaton just committed to Colorado.
I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, did you hear who Colorado just hired?
Yeah, but I mean, this is huge.
It's massive. I got to make a video on this one, especially because of the hire to go with it. Like, you bring in Phil Loadhall, former Minnesota Viking offensive lineman, Oklahoma offensive lineman, and analyst. You bring him in and then you land something this big. Wow. Now, we thought this was a bag race, and I'm going to tell you, Colorado ain't got the bags yet. And even Coach Prime told the boys, look, if you want to come in here and play ball. Don't expect to walk in here to get bags and, do all of that, because Colorado ain't got it yet. But now, getting a player like this, my God, this is huge.
That's massive.
This is huge. This is huge.
Well,
wow.
Now we both need to go make a video.
Whew. As soon as this is over, I'm going to make me a video on this. I was going to make a load hole video anyway, but that's huge.
Yeah. Wow. That's a massive, massive win for the Buffaloes.
That changes everything for me. My goodness.
Yeah. Well, I think on that, we're going to get out of here, because that we can only go down from here, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Can only go down. We've been here for an hour. Guys, Jay, before I let you out of here, let the people know where they can find all your great stuff.
Hey, you know where to find me? Unfair Sports. Follow me on YouTube as well as wherever podcasts are downloaded and listen to. Ty, thanks again for having your boy on.
Yeah, this is wild. Appreciate you hopping on here, man. If y'all enjoyed this, hit the like button. We usually go for an hour, went a little bit over, and it just had to happen right at the end of the stream, but we're both going to be talking about it. Until next time, that's it. See ya, and enjoy the spinning wheel of doom. May it spin endlessly.